a bunch of NuGet packages for .NET, Python, I don't know what they call it for Python. For Node, it's an NPM package, and for Java, it's a Maven package. So this is how Microsoft has kind of unified everything and then brought the new breed, or they call it as the brand new SDK for Azure. It's Azure SDK and .NET. And in building this, they followed certain principles. Some of the principles of productivity. Yes, a developer should not be stuck while using this particular SDK. The primary objective was make it easy for developers to be more productive. And this is the important one, idiomatic, meaning if you are coming from .NET and you learned how to use the Azure SDK in .NET, and let's say tomorrow you have a project where there is a JavaScript application and you want to communicate with Azure through this JavaScript application, it should not be the case that the constructs, the way you use Azure SDK in JavaScript should not be completely different from that of .NET. If you understood .NET, when I go to JavaScript, it should be a natural progression for me until I understand the syntax, I understand the semantics of it, so I should be able to directly work with it. So that's what idiomatic is, meaning whichever language you go, it's going to look and behave the same. In order to write the code, it will be exactly the similar. Maybe syntactically a small change, but you will have the same class name kind of things. You will have the same objects. That's what it means. Natural language experience, standard package managers. Consistent, similar experience within and across service languages. Some of those things were kept in mind. Approachable, quickly get started, learn and build. Yeah, that was another important thing. Diagnosable. Yeah, this is an important thing, right? That is why I'm today more excited about .NET, because I can put a breakpoint, I can see what happened, and if there is an exception, I can see my exception details when I'm doing infrastructure as a code, right? That's what diagnosable is. And then dependable, high quality, avoid breaking changes, and Microsoft is making sure of that. So these were some of the guidelines they followed in creating the new Azure SDK. And if there is a new language coming in, like for example, Azure SDK.NET, it has to follow these guidelines. That's the best thing they have done. They have already created a bunch of guidelines, and we'll see that, and they explain everything. Let's say there is no support for a language that you are working, and then you want to build that SDK, guidelines is there. Just look into the guideline, create a repo, build the code, and then tell Microsoft that, hey, look, can you look at my code? Can we get it into the main Azure SDK? If the code matches their bar, well, of course, they will take contribution into whatever you're doing. So now the biggest thing is you understood what is Azure SDK. You understood what is Azure SDK for .NET. In order to create infrastructural components, we need something called as management library, meaning I need to manage my infrastructure, right? I want to create resource group. I want to update resource group. I want to delete resource group. Well, yeah, that's what the management library is all about. What Microsoft is doing is in Azure SDK, they're also giving management namespace or management library, as we call it. And you can create, you can provision, you can manage your Azure resources from .NET. So Azure SDK for .NET also has a management library aspect. You can configure, you can deploy, you can, basically whatever you can do through portal, you can do now through code now. That's what the management library is all about. And it follows Azure SDK guidelines, as I said. And the namespace for anything related to management is Azure.Resource Manager .something. If I talk about virtual machines, the namespace will be Azure.Resource Manager .compute, because VM goes into the compute aspect of a cloud platform. So that's where you will find everything to create a VM, delete a VM, update a VM, everything like that. Now, there's also, basically some of the things that you will need to do. I think I have my title wrong. In this slide, what I'm trying to say is, how do you start with Azure SDK for .NET? Well, there is a couple of things that you will need to do. Of course, you need to get the right package that you want. For example, if I'm creating a virtual machine, you need azure.resourcemanager.compute. You need to first get that package. Once you have that package, you need to authenticate your code with Azure. It can be done in multiple ways. Today, what I'm going to do in order to showcase is I've already logged into Azure CLI. You need Azure CLI when you're doing your development. And in the Azure CLI, you need to authenticate yourself or any principal that you have or a user identity that you have with Azure so that Azure CLI can cache the token that it needs. It all based on that particular thing. And when you're running in CI/CD, you can do exactly the same. Create a principal, allow the principal to do some, give the principal a contributor role or whatever. And during your CD, just do a authentication using that principal with Azure, and then use the same Azure CLI and say, hey, go ahead, here's my principal, here's my secret. Please authenticate with Azure. Once it does, Azure CLI will go ahead and then cache the token, and then you can run your code because it is already there. The code will automatically pick up that particular token. I'm going to show you that how you do that. Then they provide HTTP pipeline with custom policies. Typically, it is already baked in. You don't need to create any policies, but if you want, you can create your own policies, stick it to the HTTP pipeline. But I have not found a need to create my own pipeline. I'm happy with whatever SDK already has. Of course, error handling, I can do my try catch. Distributed tracing, if you want to, also with your this particular code, you want to trace stuff that is happening, you can do that. Having said that, in the Azure SDK for .NET, the azure.resourcemanager.star packages are in public preview now. It is not yet reached like a V1, but I'm pretty sure in the coming days, it is going to, kind of become a stable package, and then, you can use them for production. I've been running it on my subscription. I treat my subscription as a production, cloud subscription, right? So it's been fine. There's no problem that I've faced till now. But it's good to put a note out here saying like azure.resourcemanager.star packages are in public preview. Now, enough said and done, right? Let's try to start looking at demo. So let me bring up Visual Studio. So I'm having Visual Studio 2022. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first just go ahead and then say File, Project. And I'm going to just pick up a console app because why? I don't need anything except a console app, right? I just want to run my infrastructure and then it's going to do it. So let's go and then create a folder, and then I will say Azure IaC net demo 1 or whatever. Yes, I'm going to place the project and solution in the same folder. And then it is asking for, hey, which one do you want to go? Well, I want to do .NET 6. It just got released 2 days ago. So I'm going to say create. And you will be, if you're very new to .NET 6, maybe the code that comes up now may kind of give you a, you may get like, oh, what? Only one line in console a console project? Well, yeah, this is called as top level statements, right? Your program.cs does not need anything except this one single line. And if I say, hey, let me run this console app, you will see now the console is going to, the application is going to run. So let's give it a couple of seconds for it to build. And here is my console application. There you go. Hello world. That's all. Only one single line, right? Okay, now I got my console write line. I'm going to delete that, okay? So what we need to do first is, well, I need the package, right? So let's do one thing. We're going to go and then get some package, and then we're going to work with a couple of them. So the first package that I need is, I need to get an authentication package. It's called as azure.identity. So first let's go and then get azure.identity. By the way, whatever I'm showcasing here, I'm using Visual Studio, but if you're a Visual Studio code developer, not to worry, you can do exactly the same thing. Maybe the way you add package is different, but it's exactly the same code. It's exactly the same package that you need to install. So as you can see, this Azure identity is a stable release, meaning it's at 1.5.0. So that's not a problem. So I'm going to go and then create install. Oh, before that, I need to do one quick thing, and that is, where's my, okay, I'm going to do it later. That's not a problem. So now I've added the package. As you can see here, I have added the package reference. Now, in order to do anything with any other, what do you call, infrastructural components, you need to first do some sort of authentication with the, Azure, right? For that, what I've done is, let me bring up my terminal. So here's my PowerShell, and I'm going to go into a particular folder. And then let's see if AZ account show. Of course, you can copy my tenant ID. That's okay, not a problem. So as you can see, I already logged in to Azure CLI. This is one of the important steps when you're working with infrastructural things. Like, you've got to have Azure CLI in your development environment. You can just go to Azure CLI documentation page and then download it, and then that's it. So I have Azure. If I do AZ version, let me try to zoom a little bit. Yeah, as you can see, I have the latest Azure CLI version. It's 2.30. That's enough for now here. I don't need this for anything else after this. Now, first thing is I need to get that namespace. Let me zoom in a little bit. Yeah, let's make it, maybe 200. So I'm going to say Azure identity, as you can see. Then what I need to do is I want to create a credential option. So this is one of the fantastic things Microsoft has done. They can actually search through a bunch of places in order to figure out where is your credentials. They can search in Azure PowerShell cache. They can search in environment. They can search in interactive browser. They can search in Visual Studio Code. They can search in Visual Studio. They can search in managed identity. If there is a managed identity on the application, they can search in shared token cache, right? Now, what I'm saying here is, look, do not look for any of these places. Okay, so there is one more place that it will look for. If you see here, it says exclude Azure CLI. I'm not excluding the Azure CLI. Why? Because when I'm running in locally, I need it to figure out my credentials using the Azure CLI's cache. And I've already logged in. You saw me logging into Azure CLI here. So that's the first thing. Second thing that we need to do is we need to create what's called as a default Azure credential. Okay. So it says where credential is equal to default Azure credential, and then I'm passing this option. So now what I'm telling the default Azure credential is, do not look at any of these places. Look for my credential in CLI. That's the only, wherever the CLI has kept the cache, token cache. Now, after you do this, the first thing that you need to do is you need to first go ahead and then create what's called as a ARM client, right? Now, notice here, it's not giving me any namespace qualification. Namespace, it's not getting the namespace. Why? Because I've not included a particular package. The package that I need now is actually known as Azure.Resource Manager. So let's go ahead and then get that guy first. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so now I need to do Azure.Resource Manager. Right? Now you will see, notice here, I've checked my include pre-release. This is another important thing. Why? Because the package, Azure.Resource Manager packages are not yet generally available. Or, Microsoft has a concept of GA, or generally available, or, it's released. As of now, we are still in beta 5, whatever. It's a version V1, but it's beta 5. So you need to have include pre-release. I'm going to go ahead and then I'm going to install it. Now let's go back to program.cs. Now I do this. Notice Visual Studio is trying to go and then figure out if it can find the namespace. Well, I know the namespace, so I can probably go ahead and then add it. Looks like my machine is running a little slow. Yeah, there you go. Now I'm using Azure Resource Manager. Okay, I added that. Now I got my ARM client. And to the ARM client, I've already passed my credential. Okay, now let's go ahead and then get our subscription, right? So we need to get our subscription. Well, very simple. We just have to say, hey, ARM client, can you go and get me the default subscription, please? That's it. I'm done with my subscription, right? Now, let me run till here. Nothing is going to happen. But what I can do is, I'm a developer. Remember, I'm a .NET dev, and I'm used to breakpoints. So let's go ahead and then start running this, and let's see what happens. Okay, as you can see here, my console window has come up. I have my breakpoints in the background. So let's try to see what happens when I made a mistake. Hang on, just give me a second. The mistake is, because there is no console.read line, the moment that line is done, the application will just shut down. So I want to quick watch this subscription variable and then see what I get. So let's run it again, and there you go. Notice I'm sitting inside Visual Studio, right? Bicep also will not give you this. Terraform also will not give you this. Pulumi, yes, it will give you this. But this is native C#, native .NET. That's it, and I can do my infrastructure as a code. Now I'm going to go ahead and then execute. I'm using async await pattern. Why? Because it is available. So I'm going to go and then execute. And it has figured out my subscription. And this is the fun part for me, right? Notice I'm quick watching. Let me try to zoom in if I can. Did I get my zoomer? Yes. And here is my subscription. I can do quick watch, and notice here, it has figured out my subscription. If somebody screen grabs my subscription, I don't know if they can do something with it, but yeah, I'm not going to show anything more with it. But yeah, I have all those things. Like, I can go and then get the ID, all those stuff. So that is fine. But what should we do? Well, let's go ahead and create a resource group. If you are well versed with Azure, you know that your project needs what's called as a resource group. It's like your bucket. Everything that you need for your project, you need to keep inside your bucket, and that bucket is a resource group. So let's try to create a resource group. So in order to create a resource group, I need to know a couple of things. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to create a couple of variables, and this is another interesting thing for me, right? Notice here, I'm creating a location. We are in Southeast Asia, so I'm trying to do that. So I'm going to say, I want to use a model called location, which is in azure.resourcemanager.resources.models. So that's it. And then I'm defining a local variable called, okay, what environment are we in? Okay, by default, we're going to be in dev environment. Okay, that's fine. Now let's create a resource group. So what should we do for the resource group? Well, it turns out that in order to do anything with Azure SDK, the concept is very simple. First, we need to get a collection. What collection are we talking about? If you want to create a resource group, well, you need to get a resource group collection. Okay, let's do that first. So I'm going to do var rg collection is equal to, I already got my subscription, and I will say get resource groups. Notice here, it says, well, we're going to get you a resource group collection. If I do my mouse over on the var, it says, this is a resource group collection. Okay, now we got the resource groups under my subscription. What we need to do is, we need to define a resource group name. Okay, let's come. I usually follow in my company a particular pattern, that is RG dash. This is one of the best practices Microsoft has put up there, which is like, your infrastructural components need to follow a convention. The convention is, what kind of component is this? RG stands for resource group. Okay, and then we usually go with MSSGUG demo. I already have demo, so I'm going to do demo 1 as a resource group name. And then I usually go with the environment in which we are creating it, right? And notice it's all C sharp. I'm not doing anything different. If you're new to C sharp, if you're not seeing what C sharp nice provides you, this is the string interpolation that I'm using. What am I saying? I want to build a string, but please copy the value of environment and then put it when you build that string. I'm doing string interpolation as we call it. Okay, now we created the collection. Next, we need to create what's called as a resource data. In this case, it's a resource group. So I have to create RG data is equal to new resource group data. What's the spelling? It's a new resource group data. Yes. Okay, let's see what happened. Okay, there you go. I need a namespace, azure.resource-manager.resources. Okay, let's get the that particular thing. Now this is what I like, right? I want to create a resource group. I missed something. Notice Visual Studio is giving me this red underline. Why? There is no argument given that corresponds to the required formal parameter location of resource group data or resource group data string. I need to pass something. Okay, got it. So that something is location, right? Now, the squiggly is gone. This is the best part of being in Visual Studio and then creating code like this. I just enjoy doing all this stuff. Okay, now I got the collection. I created the data. Now we need to do an operation. That operation is creating the resource group or updating the resource group. Okay, let's do that. I'm going to do RG ops and I will say await. And now we need to do an operation on the collection. Dot create or update async. So there is a synchronous method and there is an asynchronous method. I'm going to use an asynchronous method. And notice Visual Studio's IntelliCode is actually smart enough. It is an AI code that is running inside Visual Studio, which is smart enough to know that, hey, look, the create or update async method requires two parameters. And I think you have a parameter called RG name and you have a parameter called RG data. Is that what you want to, I think that is what you want to type. My hands are all, is away from the keyboard. Only thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to press tab now. That's it. It wrote the code for me. Like, you might have heard about GitHub Copilot. Well, Microsoft Visual Studio already had something called as IntelliCode. I think it came out recently. It's called as IntelliCode, and then it is an AI, which keeps running. And nowadays, I'm writing less amount of code. This whole putting brackets, I don't do it. I do a tab, and then it just does everything for me. Now, we got the operation. Now, once I run this operation, the resource group will be created. If I want to keep a track of that variable, I can create, okay, this is the resource group, and I can say rgops.value. So now, this value, notice here, the variable type is resource group create or update operation. The rgops is actually an operation. The value is going to represent the actual resource that I just created, which is a resource group. Now, the whole of Azure SDK for .NET is based on these three primitives. Get a collection, create a data, perform some operation. That is all it is, okay? So now, let's quickly try to create maybe a VNet, okay? So that's a typical example, right? Everybody gives. So, okay, before that, let's run this and let's make sure that, yes, it does create the, the resources. So I'm going to bring up my personal Azure subscription. And before that, I need to make sure that none of my secrets are coming out. So I have a small extension for that. You won't be able to see my subscription ID or tenant ID, nothing now. So everything will be masked for now. So let's go to the resource group. What is the name of the resource group that we have given here? So let's go here, and it is MSSGUG, right? I misspelled it. SGUG demo1 -dev. So that is the resource group. So let's make sure that resource group is not here. I already have one more called as RG-MSSGUG demo-dev. Well, not a problem. We are going to create demo1, right? So let me run my project now. By the way, if you're wondering, like, this is fine, this is your development machine, but what happens when I want to do a CI/CD? Very simple. This is a .NET application. All you need to do is build it, publish it, take the DLL, go to your CD step and say, okay, .NET run, and you're done. Right? That's the beauty of this one. So we got a subscription. Let's give it a second. It should have got the subscription. It has got the subscription. Now I declared my location, which is environment. Now I declared my location and then environment. Now it has got the resource group collection. Let's take a look at the RG name. It is MS-SG-UG demo 1. Oh, my bad. Hang on. Rookie mistake. It's not dollar here. It's just brackets. The string interpolation is put the dollar at the starting and then just the brackets, and then it will get the value. So I'm going to put a breakpoint here so that we already seen till that. So let's run it. Live scripting or live coding is always interesting. You practice 10 times, the 11th time you'll make the same mistake. So that's the thing. So now RG name is RGMS-SGUG demo 1-dev. Okay, that's good. I created the data. Now, this is the line which is going to create my resource group. So let's try to see if we can get it side by side. I don't know, this portal does not auto refresh. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an F10 and let's keep clicking refresh. Any movement, we should see SGUG demo 1-dev. Oh, it's already done. But this is not updated. Come on, portal. Or am I somewhere else? No. Okay, let me do an hard refresh. Sometimes the portal caches so much that, yeah, there you go. RG MSSG UG demo 1.dev. So let me get inside. So there you go. We just created this resource group, and we have not done anything except write 5 lines of C#. That's the beauty of Azure SDK for .NET. So now let me try to quickly create. We are already close to 1 hour mark. What I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly show you one more creation. Let's try to create a virtual network, right? So let me stop this. Okay, let's try to create a virtual network now. So what am I going to do for virtual network? Well, we're going to first go ahead and then create a name for the virtual network. So I'm going to call it VNet MSSGUG demo 1 -env. So that is typically what we always name. Then remember, we have to do so we need to get the collection first. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and then get a var VNet collection is equal to, now this is going to be interesting now. The VNet collection is again on the resource group. So remember, I had the resource group there. So I'm going to say get virtual. Why am I not getting? I think I need yes, my bad. In order to create a virtual network, remember, you need to have a package installed. So in order to create a resource group, we already installed a package called Azure.Resource Manager. Now I want to create VNet, right? VNet is part of networking, Azure networking. So if you already guessed it, I need to get Azure.Resource Manager.network. So let's try to get that quickly. And as you can see, it is a beta 3. So that's what I said. But everything works. It's just that they have not done full exclusive, comprehensive, test across. That's all it means. Okay. As you can see, I brought the network. Now I can come back here and then I can get the collection. Remember, the paradigm is you first need to get a collection. So I'm going to get var vnets is equal to, let's do a resource group dot get virtual networks. Why am I not getting? What did I miss? Yeah, the namespace. I think if I if I type it out, it should give me the namespace. Let's try to get the namespace first. Okay, there you go. I needed using azure.resourcemanager.network. Okay, so I did that. So now I got okay, let me rename it for a better clarity. VNet collection. I got the VNet collection. Next, what do I need to do? Well, I need to create the data that is required, right? So I need to create the data. What is the data? The data is nothing but virtual network data. Now you understand how consistent, idiomatic, all those things are there. We use the same concept. We got the collection. I have the collection of VNet. We created the data. Well, I'm creating the same data, and then we're going to do the operation. So that is as simple as that. Now I need to get the address space. Typically, your VNet follows a CIDR notation. I'm saying that out of this, my IP address range is 10.0.0.0/16. That means these two blocks don't change. They remain as is. That is 10.0. These two blocks will change. So that means I have 10.0.1.0 and then I have 10.0.1.1, something like that. Then, very simple. What's the next thing that we need to do? We need to do an operation. So what do? We do var vnet ops is equal to, we already have vnet collection. And then on the vnet collection, we're going to await and say, create or update. Notice the terminology. It is still the same, create or update. Now, what do I want to do? Let's see if this can figure out. Yeah, it doesn't know because it has not seen me doing that. Now, I need to give it a virtual network name. So I'm going to do vnet name. And then I need to give it a virtual network data. So I'm going to do vnet data. And then I can say var vnet is equal to vnet ops dot value. Exactly the same. I don't need to do anything except. Now I'm going to go one level extra, and then I'm going to create a subnet inside this VNet. So instead of you seeing me type, okay, let me type it out, or I'm going to cheat a little bit, and then I'm going to get a little bit of code. So notice here what I'm doing. I'm creating a subnet. My subnet name is snet1-mssgugdemo1 or whatever environment. And I need to create a subnet data. So new subnet data, the name is this, address prefix is 10.0.1.0.24. Then all I need to do is I can do a shortcut, which is like I don't need to get the collection, but rather I can directly work on the collection. Notice here what I've done, await vnet.get subnets, create or update async, and then I'm passing the same data and I got my subnet. Okay, let's quickly try to run this. We know till the resource group it works. Maybe I'm gonna keep. Okay, let's see this. I want to show you one specific thing. Can I show it here? Well, I'll need to do a complete thing. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to be here in deployment. Okay, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna run this up. So now it's going to start running. Where's my, yeah, there you go. So let's do a refresh. Okay, the deployment is not going to be coming here. Okay, now I'm creating, let's go back to resource group. And as you can see, there's no resource here, right? There's no resource here. So now I'm executing the VNet data. Now the VNet is getting created. It is waiting for, there you go. VNet has been already created. Let's refresh. It takes couple of seconds for the portal to catch up. No, it's more than a couple of seconds. I don't know what is happening. Do I have a filter? Type all, location all. Yeah, that's correct. Okay, probably I need to do a full refresh. Yeah, there you go. VNet MSSGUG demo 1-dev. Now let's go and then create the subnet. And I'm done with the subnet. My program is done, right? Now, if I maximize this, and then I go under my subnets, sorry, I need to get inside my VNet. Here is my, where did I go? Here's my VNet, and then I go inside my subnets, and we have our subnet. Remember, we set it as snet1 mssgug demo-dev1 10.0.1.0.24. Well, I got my, infrastructure created. So what did we do here? You just created your first Azure infrastructure as a core, right? In IaC, this is what we call as IaC. Now, I can do a bunch of C# best practices here. I don't want to write it here. I will move it into a class file. I don't want to do it this way. I will do something. Yeah, you can do anything you want. Why? Because this is C#. You bring in your C# class best practices. You bring in your C# dependency injection, everything. Now, in the interest of the time, I've already done that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little bit of code that I've done already. What it does is, notice here what I'm doing. Let me try to zoom a little bit. Yeah, so this should be visible. So I'm setting up my dependency injection, right? And I'm also making use of app-settings.json. Why? Maybe when I deploy to development environment, I want, when I deploy to development environment, I want my console application to log, everything, right? But when I'm running it on a production environment, I don't want anything to be logged into anywhere. So I can use app-settings.json, change the values depending on environment, you name it. I can do a bunch of things on this because it's C#. Then I'm setting up service collection, meaning I'm creating my DI container. And I said, this is the configuration, I'm setting up logging. And notice, I created my own extension method called add resource helpers. If I go to inside, I'm doing nothing but these kind of things. These are all the classes that I've written. Resource group helper, keyword helper, application insights helper, app service plan helper, web helper. So what is a resource group helper? Very simple. I went with a fluent, coding, and then I'm saying with location, define the name with location. And notice here, it's exactly the same code that we did. Remember, I have the resource group location, and then I'm getting the collection, and then I'm running the operation, and then I created the resource group. That's it. Because I'm a C# guy, I know how to organize my classes. I'm at the luxury of doing anything that I want, right? I declared my location. And notice here, in the demo, I created the credentials, everything. But I went ahead and then created my own custom class called Azure Authenticator. What does it do? Well, very simple. It does exactly the same thing. But now, because I have a class called Azure Authenticator, it is having all these properties, the credential, the access token, the automation principal IDs, subscription, tenant ID, and because we all know .NET Core has its own service collection, dependency injection container, well, I've already added it to the container, right? Now, let's take a look at what I did with resource group creation. Yes, I have a name. I call it as RG Food Dev. I go ahead into the dependency injection container and say, please give me this service. I got the service. Look how I can create this one. This is a fluent way of creating a resource group. A resource group helper, I want you to create this resource group with this location. Go ahead, create or update, right? That is all I was able to do. And then similarly, keyword, exactly the same concept. If you want to see the code for keyword, it's exactly the same. Notice here, I have resource group.get keywords. Okay, I got my keyword, and then I'm creating the keyword data, and then I will create some parameters, and then I will call create or update async. It's exactly the same. That is why I said it is a consistent, idiomatic, and great productivity for developers. Then I've created an application insights. I've created an app service plan. Then I created a web app. How cool is this? I just have to set a bunch of things. Notice here I said my sites framework version is 6.0. I want an integrated pipeline. FTP should be disabled. No, don't give me HTTP 2.0. WebSockets is not enabled. It's not always on. Why? Because I'm using a free plan. And in the free plan, you can't have always enabled. You cannot have 64-bit process running. So I have to set it to 32-bit worker process. And then here is the web app that I'm creating. I'm saying, create a web app with this name, under this resource group, with this location, and with this plan. And here is a site configuration. Go ahead and create it. Well, it's exactly the same. I have a management client. I'm creating the creator update async, and I'm updating the configuration. anything that you can do in Azure portal or Azure CLI, well, now you can start writing C# code. Now this, I can maintain it. If I give it to a C# dev, when he sees this bunch of lines, he's like, okay, I understand what is happening. I can go in, I can debug, I can pretty much go ahead and then, maintain this, right? So let me try to run this one. Let me close this. Yeah, it's okay. Is there a question or something? Let me check. I think we are like 8 minutes overboard, but this is the last bit of the demo. So let me just run this, and I will show you what I was able to do in terms of the logging and all those things. There you go. I'm spitting out. I'm using the .NET Core logger, and then it's just trying to go and then create authenticating, creating resource group, creating keyword, creating application insights, creating app service plan, creating website, and I'm done. Right? Okay, I have a breakpoint. Let's go ahead and then try to run this guy. Yeah, it's now updating the configuration and it's waiting. Done. There you go. I finished creating everything in one single script. Now, if I go back to my resource groups, and the resource group that we just now saw was RG Food Dev, right? Notice here, I created my keyword. So you can cross-check this, if you're thinking I was saying something else. Notice app foo001, app foo001 dev, then it has created a service plan, ASP foo001, that's what you see here. It has created an application inside, API foo001, and that is here. Keyword keyword foo E85, there is this. So this was basically a stepping stone for anybody who wants to like, hey, look, can I create IaC with .NET? Yes, infrastructure as a code with .NET is now possible with Azure SDK. Having said that, there are a couple of links that you will need to know. Let me try to bring up I use Edge a lot, and notice here in Edge, you have this thing called as collections. Oh, where is my collection? I know where it is. Just give me a second. It's in my other profile. I need to get my profile. My system is running very, very slow. Okay, so let's take a look at it. What was that? Yeah. If you really want to understand this whole Azure SDK guidelines, and then, so here it is. So these are the guidelines. Are basically just go into Azure SDKs. I'll come back to the question. I see a question in the chat. I'll come back to that. Before that, this is the official site of Azure SDK. And if you see here, there are a bunch of releases going on. I'm looking at latest, and this is the language support that I was talking about. If you see here, the Azure SDK for .NET, for Java, for JavaScript and TypeScript, for Python, for C++, for embedded C, for Android, for iOS, for Go, you name it, it's there. And notice there are two distinctions, client libraries and management libraries. Client libraries are, I want to connect to SQL database and read the data. I want to connect to Key Vault and read a secret. I want to post something to App Insights. Yeah, that is client library. Management library is for managing your resources. And notice here, at the time of writing this code, or today when we're doing this demo session, notice we don't have much of the resources available under the management library in Azure SDK for .NET. That is because Microsoft is slowly adding one by one. We already have Cosmos DB, Event Hub is there, Insights is there, Key Vault is there, network storage the subnet and vnet that we created. Storage is there, but no app service or whatever yet. It will come soon. But let me show you a fantastic thing. If I go and then start looking at JavaScript and TypeScript, and I go to management libraries, bro, they have everything. App service, authorization, compute, container registry, container service, Databricks, event grids, event hub, you name it, everything is a MySQL, operations, operational insights, notification of PostgreSQL. This is JavaScript. Maybe we'll come back one day and then do Azure SDK for JavaScript or Azure IaC with TypeScript, something like that. And then there are stable releases, everything. And the guideline that I was talking about is here. The general guideline is idiomatic. It should be idiomatic. Convention for the target language. It should feel natural to a developer in the target language. So that is what idioms are all about. Consistent. If you are changing between languages, well, the construct should be the same, right? And then if I take a look at .NET guidelines, here is the design guidelines. You got to follow this design principle, and they have already put it. If you want to create a client, this is how you need to create a client. So everything has been put up here, okay? And they also have blogs. I keep following their blogs, fantastic blogs they keep writing. And then you can also look at the .NET API reference if you want. For example, we looked at resource group, right? So I can go here. What? Yeah, I think it is resource manager. And if I go inside the resource manager, well, it will pretty much, okay, there's no README for this. Okay, that's fine. We'll come back to that. So you can pretty much take a look at all the API references here. Let's go back. API reference, and then GitHub, the GitHub repo, the main repo where you can go and take a look at what is it. There is this repo, Azure SDK. Similarly, there's a repo for Azure SDK for .NET. Okay, I think it is Azure SDK -for-net, if my memory is correct. Yeah, there you go. This is Azure SDK for .NET, and then samples are there. Whatever I did is basically looking at all these guys. The samples are here. You can take a look at it. There is a separate repo for samples, I believe. This is not the sample that, this is not the one. But yeah, my whole idea was basically to show you that, infrastructure as a code, yes, you need it. But if you're a .NET dev, how can you do it? Well, you can do it using this way. Let me just quickly put up my... If anybody needs my contact, I'm just going to put that out. Okay, so that's all I had. My email is lohithgn@outlook.com. Now, let me thank you very much for sitting through the talk. I hope you learned something new today. That's always our goal here. Okay, let me take the question. If we have multiple subscriptions, then how we can specify subscription to create resources? Well, you need to keep in mind when you're doing your CI/CD, it's always going into one. I mean, you need one pipeline working on one thing. You can't have one pipeline doing multiple, things. So you got to have your own. That is why you need IaC. Why do you need IaC? The question that you are coming to in a real world can occur when, in fact, you will never be having a situation wherein like you have multiple subscriptions and then into multiple subscriptions you want to go and write something. That is not typically what you would want to do. You will do multiple subscription for one single reason, for management, for governance. For example, I want all the app insights, alerts, all those things to be in a management subscription. Then I want the actual project itself to be inside a project subscription, right? That is typically how in a real world, a big enterprise will go ahead and then break their subscription. They will have a management subscription where all the storage, all the log, all the analytics, all the app insights is sitting there. And they will have a subscription for project. Now, in this case, what you will need to do is you will need to write your CI/CD for your project subscription. Okay, you need to create a principle which works, which has maybe a contributor right only on that particular resource group, or only on that, only has that particular access to that particular thing for subscription. right? Then your CI/CD for your project is going to use that subscription and then create everything under that particular subscription. You created your resource group, you created your, all those things. Then, having said that, from your CD, if you had to write back something into your management subscription, it is going to be tricky. Why? You already are running in under one subscription to create your project. If you want to jump back, then you need to make sure that you set up a different credentials again and do an authentication to the second subscription, get that credential, then go and talk to that subscription, component.
Okay. Yeah, actually, because I got the doubt when you have mentioned there was a in the code a default subscription. So default subscription is like if suppose we I have two subscription in my account. So if I
Correct.
want to create some resources other than default one, so how we can specify?
Correct. So,
Yeah.
so typically in a real world scenario, what you will do is you will not run as Lohith or you will not run as Asif.
Yeah.
Lohith and Asif are developers, and in an enterprise, Lohith and Asif may have more than one subscription attributed to their, identity,
Yeah.
right? That's where you get this problem. Yeah. Whenever you're running your CD, do not run it as Lohith, do not run it as Asif. You gotta have a specific principle created for that specific project or that specific subscription. You gotta do that first. Yeah. If you're not doing that, then you have something problem in the way you are doing stuff.
Exactly. Yeah,
right.
Because
It's always has to be. Why do you need to do that? That is because by creating a principle and limiting its access policies, I don't give a bigger surface of attack for somebody. I'm limiting the surface of attack. You can only do this on this resource group, right? For example, even my developers in my in my company, they don't have access to all the resource group. If he's working on project A, we make him contributor only to project A, right? Yeah. But only me and my boss, probably we have to manage everything. So we are the global administrator. So we have access to everything. My tester has access only to that particular specific resource group that she has to, go ahead and then test it. Yeah. In a real world practice, limit your access, limit your policy on a particular principle, use that principle in order to set up your CD. And that is the principle which should just go and then write to that particular resource group or whatever you are trying to do.
Got it. Thanks.
It is possible to do 2 subscriptions, but you will need to do what I did at the starting. I created a default credential and it picked up a particular credential. If you want to go to others, there is a mechanism to actually tell which credential you should pick it up. You can use client ID and secret and then create a credential.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Guys, thank you so much, Lohith. It was really nice and wonderful session. We have learned a lot. Hey guys, if you have any further questions, so you can ask, and yeah. So
otherwise, it's dinner time for everybody. So,
yeah. Okay, so
I think I took more than 1 hour, so it's 1 hour 20 minutes. So thank everybody for being here, and hope you learned something new today. And I would be just ping me if you have any questions. I should be able to help you guys out. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks, Lohith. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. So if you haven't registered for the next session, so it's on 25th November. You can register on our meetup.com. So we have already announced. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining today.
Thank you. Bye.